Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Yes, this next speaker is our main speaker. I heard him once before I went out this time. It was about 9 months ago. I wish I would have listened to him. Mark is the speaker.
My name is Mark. I'm an alcoholic. If you're new in here and you want to drink, listen to me. That's it's great. Wow. Welcome back. It's great to see you. I hope you stay this time. It's a nice way to be introduced in Malibu on Saturday night. Last time I heard him, I drank. I was nervous, but now I feel like I'm at home, you know what I mean? It's great. I guess the only message I do want to deliver tonight is for the people that are new here tonight, that if you choose not to drink or use drugs a day at a time or be by yourself, then I've delivered the message. Thank you, and keep coming back. That's really the message that was so freely given to me, and everything else has just been my experience. And I too want to thank Donna very much for ruining my evening. I just got in from the other part of the world last night and leaving to the other part of the world tomorrow, and I ran into Donna at a meeting today, and she asked if I'd be the first speaker. So I figured 15 minutes, it's a piece of cake, and here I am, the main speaker. And one more time, I've learned that what I think is going to happen isn't going to happen, you know. And if I just suit up and show up, everything's going to be okay. And but I'm absolutely. And before I say anything else, I want to congratulate the birthday people. And I also know one thing too, that alcoholics make a lot of bad decisions. And I made a bad decision before I came up and spoke. I had to make a decision whether I was going to go to the little boys' room or not. And made a bad decision. I am totally. I'm totally to the opinion that alcoholics just get more out of the average day, and I don't know about anyone else, but I've been flying on airplanes a lot lately in the last few months, and it seems to be I'm always someone who always sits next to me always drinks a lot. You know what I mean? And I believe that people that are non-alcoholic do not count people's drinks who sit next to them on airplanes, you know what I mean? And I'm the guy that's like, this guy has no idea, or she has no idea what's really going on in my head. I'm saying, more! Drink more! You know what I mean? And then they order more, and they're fine, you know what I mean? That pisses me off, you know? But by the time I'm off that airplane, I'm like exhausted. I want to go to sleep. I'm like ruined, man. They have no idea what's going on in my head, you know? And my sponsor, Al Sines, you know, reminds me that what I've got is a disease. You know, alcoholism is a disease. It's an allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. And there's been no drugs or alcohol in my system for 13 plus years. But the obsession, you know, with my head is just unbelievable. You know, I mean, the prime example is the planes, you know. Or if you're new in here tonight, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency sometimes, I believe that wet paint signs were made for alcoholics. You know, I have tendencies to, when I walk by a wet paint sign, just to touch it. You know what I mean? Normal for a guy like me, you know. And I have friends that are not alcoholic that just say, Mark, why are you touching a sign that just says wet paint, you know? And the worst thing for an alcoholic like me is that to touch it and it not be wet. You know what I mean? Forget about it. I just like flip out. And again, you know, people say, Mark, what's the big deal, man? Leave it alone. You know, no, take the goddamn sign off then, you know? You understand, you know what I mean? And it's unbelievable. And I think the longer I stay sober, the less time my life has become so full that the less time I really have to do a lot of things, to get things accomplished. And a lot of times I'll be in a store and I'll get a few items, and being alcoholic, I try to do, I try to do it right, at least in the store, you know what I mean? I have like selective trying to do it right times, you know what I mean? Like I think, okay, well now I go into a store, you're going to go to quick line checkout, Mark, you should just take a few and count it and be right. So I always do it right in the store, 100% of the time. And 100% of the time, I always start counting items in front of me, and people always have more than 9 items, you know what I mean? And I just lose it, I absolutely lose it. And the amazing part is that nobody knows what's going on upstairs but me, you know what I mean? That's what I like about coming to AA. I remember when I first spoke about, my first time I spoke in AA, my sponsor said, don't worry. The first thing Al said to me, I was so nervous as I was this evening. Al said to me, he said, Mark, don't forget that when you get up there, then they said my name. He said, everybody will be judging you. You know what I mean? Now, what I have learned in Alcoholics Anonymous in the short time that I've been sober is that's all bullshit. See, because you're too self-obsessed with your own stuff. You don't even hear me. Half the people in here are just like into tomorrow, what happened today. They're pissed off at their boyfriend or girl. I know that because that's how I am. But just watch my head, and I'll go like this a lot at meetings. I'll walk out of a meeting sometimes and not hear a single thing. But I'll tell you I did. I heard it all. I was a great speaker. You know what I mean? But it's really a miracle that I'm standing here sober tonight. It is, for a guy that's not playing with a full deck, it's a miracle. And from where I've come from to where I am today in sobriety, forget about what my life was like before I got here. I don't like to talk a lot about my drugs and alcohol use because if you're in this room tonight, you did what you had to do to get here, And if you didn't, drink, you know what I mean? As I have strongly encouraged before, and people have followed up on. Thank God we're not authorities, right? I could kill people with my information. And that's like, and I'm one of those type of guys that if I was 10% as good in relationships as I am in business, I'd be like the dream guy, you know what I mean? And I have sponsored men over the years that have healthy marriages, and they come to me and ask me for my opinion, and I tell them I can't give it to you. You won't be married too long. And and what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I turn them over to somebody who has a healthy relationship in the program. Unfortunately, my sponsor, who's been married 5 times, has had a very healthy relationship the last 10 years, and so I turn them over to them. But anyway, getting back to it, and I always love when guys call me up, and it might be 2 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. There's never a time that never ceases to amaze me that it's always about girls or money. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for the phone call to come in when it doesn't involve girls or money. And I always love the guys that I work with that tell me about the girls, especially about the girls in AA, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, because of my own experience and the type of guy that I have been in the program, which is sometimes not a saint, I have to tell them, look at the package the women are getting with us, you know what I mean? Sticking up for the girls. And but anyway, in sobriety, I had a wonderful experience a couple weeks ago. And this is actually, the definition of insanity for me in sobriety is repeating the same action, thinking the results will change the second time around. And for the second time in sobriety, I took a guy in who's a very good friend of mine who had a hard time getting sober for 8 years and finally has about 1.5 years underneath his belt. And he wanted what I had, and he wanted that girl I was dating. And when I was 5 years sober, I was sponsoring this wonderful guy. He was a well-known entertainer. We trudged the road of happy destiny. I seemed to get the VIPs in the room, because when I came in, I was a VIP, and I'll tell you about that one. And so anyway, at 5 years sober, he told me he loved me and called me up and said that he was going to marry my ex-wife. I learned about resentment in Alcoholics Anonymous. At 5 years of sobriety, I prayed for a guy to die, and anyway, a couple weeks ago when this took place, after taking this guy in, it wasn't as bad, but you know, it's like, what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is that what you do not think is going to happen happens, you know. And for me, either God is or God isn't. And where I came from, I grew up in Sherman Oaks. When I was a young kid, my father told me that don't make the same mistake he did. And that was, you know, he told me it was as easy to marry a rich woman as it was a poor woman, you know. And that made me feel like I would never do it by myself, you know. And I was on a mission to prove to him, to my dad, that I could do it on my own. And by the grace of God, by a bunch of coincidences, which I've learned, coincidence is a long form of spelling God for me today, I ended up in the right place, and I ended up in the record business. And I signed this group at 19, and I made a lot of money. And I went from sharing a bedroom with my kid sister to a 14-bedroom estate on the beach. And I started believing everything people said about me. You know, I started believing those things, that because I had these things that I was this type of guy, and I was off to the races, you know. The reason I drank and the reason I did drugs is because when you're, you know, 21, 22 years old and you've made $25 million, what else is there to do? You know what I mean? You got a jet, a big estate, you start drinking like normal people. And I absolutely went through a period of my life that I always have sworn that I've never been in a blackout, and I'm now convinced today that I was in a 6-year blackout, you know. And but I'm really grateful for everything that I experienced. You know, it was important for me at that time of my life to make money, to date that important girl, to be seen on this TV show and have an article written about. That's where my insecurity led me, because my dad told me I couldn't do it, you know. And the amazing part for me is the fact that my family were pretty healthy. You know, there's no alcoholics, no drug addicts. They're a pretty healthy group. But somehow, some way, I was the guy that went left. And I'm the only one in the family that I know that has this disease. But what happened for me, it's a very tough feeling to achieve and receive success when you know that you're really not deserving of it. So I just proceeded to continue doing a lot of crazy things. When people got close to me, I just made sure they were away from me. I can tell you that if I could still do what I used to do, I would do it. I had a great life. I'm not one of these type of guys that came in off Skid Row, and if you came off Skid Row, God bless you, because I came off of Skid Row on the inside. I was a dead man on the inside and a very wealthy man on the outside, and that's a bad combination. And when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe that my sponsor, Al Sines, lost a draw. You know, I believe that they drew, and Al lost. Because Al's the only guy that I could have heard in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And I'm very grateful for Al, because Al's the type of guy that a lot of people know. Al's sober now. He'll be 33 years sober this year. And he's the type of guy that just doesn't care, you know what I mean? When I met Al, I showed him I had a big article in a magazine, and I went up and I showed Al who I was. And Al told me that he was very impressed, and he told me that because you're a VIP, he said, we're going to save a special seat for you in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know what I mean? And so I went to meetings with Al, and I sat in the very front. So Al said, hey, Mark, come here, man. We got a seat for you up here, you know. And Al put me right in front, you know, thinking that people, obviously, you knew that was a VIP. So, and Al did this strange thing. He used to tell all these guys to come up to me, you know. He'd say, hey, this is Mark. He's got like 6 days, you know, hey, and he'd hit me, you know. And, Al, when you're 6 days, where I came from, you don't hit me, you know what I mean? And Al was like just so like off the wall, I thought, you know what I mean? Imagine what he thought about me. And I remember all these men giving me their phone number, and that just blew my mind. I don't know about you, and whatever your preference is, God bless you this evening, but when I came in here and I heard about turning it over and having men give me their phone numbers telling me I can call them all hours of the night, sorry, not me, sorry, you know, just... that wasn't me. And then they say they invited me to coffee. Yeah, right. No problem. We'll just sit up all night and talk. Right. And Al just kept smiling and laughing, and he kept asking me, "Hey, Mark, do you have a lot of phone numbers?" I said, "Sure, Al." I'd go home and throw them all down the toilet as soon as I got home. Ripped them up, washed my hands, And then it was like, and I remember Al was like one of those guys that spoke a lot at meetings. And we used to go like Santa Barbara, San Diego, here. So Al would call me up. He'd say, "Hey, Mark, we're going to Santa Barbara tonight." And I'd get in the car with Al. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Al would start telling me these stories about himself. I said, "Man, you are weird." He'd start telling me about when he was a kid and having this affair with his uncle and shit. And I said, "What am I doing in the car with this guy going to Santa Barbara?" It was wild. And I remember, like, after the third time and third night, I say, "Al, are you the only one who speaks in the AA?" He said, "Hey, man, I'm the only man you need to hear, so shut up and listen to me." Wow, I thought that was pretty heavy, And and I remember when I got sober, and I love the fact, this is a very warm meeting to me, Donna, and there are a lot of people in here that saw me get sober. And remember, when I came in here with 2 armed bodyguards. It was Al. Richard remembers. It was Al, me, and my baggy sweats, my Hawaiian shirt, and the eyes that looked like I just got thrown out of the 405 going 65 miles an hour. Wondering how you knew that I was just new in the program. So it was Al, whatever I was, the bodyguard with a suit and tie, and a gun. And it was real obvious this man had a gun, next to me, and a guy at the door with a gun, Right? And the perception, or I should say my perception, how it changes, when I took my 10-year cake, I got sober at the Brentwood meetings, and when I went back on my 10-year cake, there were a bunch of guys who are sober, in their 20s, 30s, and they said, "Mark, we've waited 10 years to tell you this." And I said, "What?" 10 years later, they said, "When you came into Brentwood, and you had those, policemen with you, we thought," now understand, I brought them in because I wanted you to leave me alone and just leave me alone. They told me they thought that I was in Santa Monica jail and I was such a bad drunk that the police brought me to an AA meeting." So, oh well. But I'll never forget that. It was wild. And the only person they were protecting was me from me. You know what I mean? They were not after me. You know what I mean? But the amazing part was, previous to coming in here, like about a few months previous to getting into Alcoholics Anonymous, I used to decide, because of the entertainment business, I used to hang out with these guys that, for all points and purposes, I'll just identify them as the pizza makers. You know what I mean? They all have O as a last name. You put the points together. And so when I was a few months sober, I got a visit from 2 FBI agents, and they wanted to talk to me about the pizza makers. They want to know why they had these pictures of these pizza makers and me. How did I get involved with these pizza makers? And I told them, that I'm sober. I don't know what you're talking about. I was so out there anyway, and they suggested that maybe I come down to federal court and testify in front of the grand jury and tell them that I don't know what I'm talking about, And I don't know about you, but I came to believe in a higher power when I went down in front of the grand jury. I had no problem believing in God. And if you're new in here, I strongly encourage you to take a lot of chips, 30, 60, 90. Those chips saved my life. And when I went down that day in front of the federal court, down to the federal court in front of the grand jury, I shot off. I had Al told me I could take a chip at every meeting I went to. So at 30 days, I'd gone to all these different meetings, so I took 30-day chips for like 25 days. You know what I mean? So I only had to wait 5 days in between chip time. And so what happened is, when I went down, this alarm went off, so all these guys started drawing their guns, and they said, "What do you got in your pockets?" I said, "Just this," and all these AA chips came out. "I'm sober." They said, "So what? If you lie, you're going to prison." You know what I mean? And I slowly became a believer in a higher power. And so what would happen at meetings, Al and I would go to meetings. My 2 security guys would come with me. The 2 FBI agents were outside watching us. It was a circus, And anyway, what happened is, at 9 months, I lost the FBI guys. They just stopped following me, and I guess they decided that maybe I was doing something good. And but what happened for my first year of sobriety, that I never, ever want to forget that first year, because for me, the first year was the single most important part of my sobriety. My sponsor shared with me that this is your foundation year. This is the year this is gonna make it or break it for you in the future. And I'm so grateful for a loving sponsor who took the time to treat me the way he treated me, because he was the only guy, like I said, that I would have heard the whole time. And what Al used to tell me is that, I remember, because I was an important guy at that VIP at that time, and I told Al, I can't do this, I have to that. He said, Mark, you only have to go to one meeting a week. I figured, man, I got the best sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, but you, my friend, are the only guy that you don't know which meeting you're going to need, so you better go every day, you know? And I went to a lot of meetings with Al, and you know what's great is when you sponsor guys, or your sponsor suggests for you to do something, normally they have to do what they suggest for you to do, you know? And I remember Al telling me that the real meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous are the meetings an hour before and an hour afterwards, you know? So I remember going with Al, and we went to a meeting one night, and I had this fancy car, you know, and I pulled up an hour early, and I parked it like 2 miles away. And Al said, what are you doing? I said, Al, I don't want to be kicked out of Alcoholics Anonymous, man. And somebody who had probably about 6 minutes more sobriety than I did told me I shouldn't be driving this car to AA. Now, if you're new in here tonight, I want to share with you, it was shared with me, that Alcoholics Anonymous is the bottom of the barrel. If you don't make it here, you're fucked. You know what I mean? That's it, man. This is it. You know what I mean? Jails, he told me, institution, or you die. You know, so I didn't want to do it wrong. So Al laughed at me. And Al said, don't park the car here. Park it in front, man. Show everybody what you got, because you may not have it one day. Al obviously didn't know who I was, right? 2 months later, I lost the car. You know what I mean? But the amazing part was, coming up on my first year of sobriety, I remember real quickly, I just want to say this, that I was honest in all my affairs except with the IRS. So I decided that I could get honest with the IRS. I'll give everything I have and put it in somebody else's name, and I'll go to the IRS and tell them I have nothing. So I went to the IRS, put all my things in somebody else's name, and I said, I've got nothing. He said, great. Went back to the guy, and he said, guess what? You've got nothing. Now, I don't know about you, but when you have FBI agents who just left your side for hanging out with pizza makers, you don't have the option of killing somebody. You know what I mean? And so I rolled into my first year of sobriety. Here I was. I came in, boy wonder, in the entertainment business, penthouse, Rolls Royce, millions of dollars, stayed around in Alcoholics Anonymous for a year and lost it all. I figured this is a wonderful example. I told Al, I said, I can't take my cake. He said, take your cake, man. No one's paying attention anyway. And and I got to tell you that the journey has been unreal. You know, I filed bankruptcy in sobriety, you know, and I was real nervous about it. It was a big deal to me. And how I did it is I did it with other people in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, because you had the heart and courage to share your honesty up here from the podium. I was able to do the same thing back, and I was able to walk through things. I have done nothing by myself in Alcoholics Anonymous. And in fact, I liked filing bankruptcy so much, I filed 3 bankruptcies in sobriety so far. It's the best. And and the amazing part is today, I'm involved with a multi-million dollar company, you know. It's not mine, though. And, you know, I want to tell you that sobriety, the journey, the single reason I feel that I'm sober today is, one, because of a loving sponsor, a man that I could tell all my secrets to. I need one guy that I can tell 100% to, because if I tell somebody 99%, it's that 1% that's going to get me drunk. And I am very fortunate, and I hope that if you're new in here tonight, that you reach out and you get phone numbers and you find that one person that you can share it all with. And I believe, for me, being of service is very important. I sponsor a lot of men, not because I'm a great guy, because my sponsor sponsors a lot of men, you know, and I just want what he has. And I believe that I'm just a link in a chain, you know. And I've also learned one thing else from my sponsor, and I hope that if nothing else you get this message tonight if you're new, and that is that being sober is a lot of fun. You know what I mean? If you miss it, shame on you. I've had a great time through the FBI guys, which I will tell you that at 5 years sober, I got another call from those FBI agents. And those FBI, I thought, you know, I hadn't talked to them for 4 years plus. I figured they wanted me to come speak on alcoholism to the FBI. You know what I mean? What do they want 4 years later? And what happened is they told me that they can only in AA can you understand this? But they came out that morning to pick me up. I figured, oh, they want to lecture on AA. And what they told me is that I had been indicted, and I had faced 50 years in prison for something I did previous to getting sober, hanging out with these stupid pizza guys. And they told me they felt bad. Long story short, they asked me if I turned myself in. Sober 5 years, of course. I hung up the phone. I figured, how quick can I jump on a plane out of the country and never come back? And my second thought was, this is going to be real heavy for this room. I called my sponsor. You know what I mean? So I called Al. I said, Al, the FBI wants me. I'm facing 50 years in prison. He said, don't fucking call me. Call your attorney. Nothing like being let down by your sponsor.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And so my next call obviously was to my attorney, but you know what? Al showed up, and he showed up in court when they took me down. But if you ever want to know, if you're new in here tonight, and you ever want to know when you'll give your best pitch, it's not from a podium up here. It's in the back seat of the FBI car when you're being booked downtown for 50 years in prison. When the agent says to you, so you look great, what's been happening? Told him what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. I learned that from you. When all else fails, back to basics. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And after that, they took me downtown, they booked me, and long story short, because my time's running out, and I want to share some important things in sobriety that's happened to me. But a lot of people, and there are people in this room that showed up in that courtroom for me. It was a very tough thing. I pleaded guilty. This is going to be heavy for new people. I pleaded guilty because I was fucking guilty. You know what I mean? And I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous that if I'm willing to go to any length to stay sober, if I'm willing to go to jail or no jail, house or no house, girl or no girl, I can keep my sobriety and my self-respect and my dignity and my pride as a human being. And nobody can take that from me once I come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went up there, and God be my witness, it was an unbelievable room. It was everybody in front of me got 45 years in prison. 45 years in prison. And then it was Al and my mom. And the room was packed with people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to tell you that when we get together, we do not look like the PTA. You know what I mean? When you put a group of alcoholics together, so there was national news there, media, because of these pizza guys. It was packed. They had extra deputies. You thought there was going to be a breakout because we all showed up to support another sober guy, just to show up, just to be there. And the miracle about it all is what I failed to tell you is that during that process, the FBI agent who arrested me was so impressed with my story, and I told him about the girls in Rodeo Drive, he wanted to go to one of those meetings with me, you know? And after I had been on the front page of the LA Times, which was just wonderful with the Italian pizza guys, you know what I mean? And the same week, he said, can I go to a meeting with you? I said, yes, because you taught me to say yes, and I hated you all for telling me that. And I picked him up, and we went in the same car that he arrested me in. And it was 4 days after they arrested me. And it's a miracle. The most amazing thing happened was the fact that Dave said to me, he said, let's take my car. I said, no, let's take my car. He said, no, let's take my car. And I said, okay, take me to the desert, beat me up. I don't care. It's over for me, you know. 5 years around here, you know, going to meetings, showing up, taking phone calls all hours of the night. I had a lot of confidence. It was great. And because I've learned from you not to quit 2 minutes before the miracle. And because you have loved me back to loving myself when I was incapable, when I came in here being insecure and frightened and afraid, I've learned the call of help. And I got in that car with that man. He said to me, where do you want to go? And I said, he said, let's go eat. And I went to a restaurant, and 5 minutes out of Westwood, we went to a restaurant before Brentwood, and that man broke down and cried, that FBI agent. And he said, Mark, he says, I've been with the FBI agency for 28 years. He said, I've got another year to go, and I have a drinking problem. I need help. Can you help me? Now, I don't know about you, and I've heard many stories from this podium that just tear my heart apart, but I believe that I'm just here to carry the message. It's a bitch of a way to carry it, you know what I mean? God's got a sense of humor with this boy, and And Dave broke down, and now I took Dave to his first meeting. I went to my home group meeting. I wanted to share. I just got arrested. I was on national TV. I faced all this time, and I got a newcomer, the FBI agent, who arrested me, sitting next to me. I can't get honest. No fucking way. There's no way I'm coming to your meeting and sharing honesty with Dave next to me. You know what I mean? And then Dave says to me at the end of the meeting, "Would you be my sponsor?" Sure, Dave, but I'm going to lie. Dave said to me, he said, "Well, I can't show up in court because I'll jeopardize the government." He said, but and he would call me every day and share feelings with me, and I wanted to tell him stuff, and I couldn't. So I lied for a while, you know what I mean? Progress than perfection, you know what I mean? Dave is now sober 8 years. And back to that courtroom. I got 5 years in jail. And the room went silent as it just did. I got 5 years in jail. And all of a sudden, another one of those coincidences, another one of those miracles in Alcoholics Anonymous happened. Before I went up there, Al reached over, gave me a kiss on my cheek. Because let me tell you something, being alcoholic, we do things in big scales. Because when they announced my name, they said me versus the United States. It wasn't me versus, it was me versus the United States. You know, yeah, for the AA, you know. We'll do it all. And Al said to me, he whispered over to me and he said, "Hey, Mark, this my sponsor, I'm faced with 50 years in prison, and everybody has gone." And he says to me, "Remember, man, when you're sober, it's like playing with loaded dice. The game is rigged. You can't lose." And he kissed me on my cheek, and I went up there, and that's the last thing that I heard, you know. And that judge asked if there's one thing I wanted to say before he sentenced me, and I turned around to those people in that room. There's some in here that were there, and I just broke down and cried, and I thanked everybody for my life, you know. I was overwhelmed as I get tears in my eyes thinking about it now, you know. And he gave me 5 years in prison, and then one of those miracle things happened. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started talking about God. The judge. And this is a senior federal judge who you read about every day in the newspaper. They've been trying to throw off. He's a bigot. He's a nut. He's off the rocker. And he starts lecturing people in that room about God. God this, God that. He went on about God's going to bring good and drug addicts and And I figured, man, I'm gone. I'm already gone. Take me. I don't want to hear it. Idiot, take me. Do not say another word. I'm going. Goodbye. Take me. And all of a sudden, at the end of that, he suspended my sentence. He suspended my sentence. And he did the worst thing he could do to an alcoholic. And God be my witness. The next words that came out of his mouth were, "Young man, for the next 5 years," get this, "you can drink no alcohol, do any pills, smoke any of that funny stuff. If you do anything, I'm going to put you back in prison for 5 years. And God be my witness, my head at that moment said, being the wonderful alcoholic that I am, my head said, "Fuck you." How dare you tell me I can't fucking drink? I'll show you. I obviously chose not to drink the last 5 years. And anyway, they let me off probation. Miracle things happen. I got a presidential pardon. You know, the FBI since then has called me to assist them with a couple guys that have had problems with alcohol, just to share my story. You know what I mean? And sometimes I just have to sit down in my room and grab a teddy bear and realize that I'm just a kid from Sherman Oaks, the skinny little kid that just wanted to be okay, just wanted you to like me for who I am, and always was liked, but just didn't feel it. And because when I get asked, when I do things that I do, I act like a big person. You know, I'm supposed to go out there and be an example. You know what I mean? And I can tell you that the people in Alcoholics Anonymous have saved my life. It may be the big book and it may be the steps, but you single-handedly have saved my life. You've held me. You've allowed me to cry. You've allowed me to grow up. You've allowed me to be stupid. You've allowed me to be good. You've loved me no matter what. You've loved me when I wasn't dating the right girl, and you loved me when I didn't have the right car. You loved me when I had living in someone's spare bedroom, and you just loved me when I just didn't even know who I was. And if anyone who's new in here tonight, if you don't leave here tonight with some phone numbers, and you don't reach out and take a shot, to take a risk, the worst thing that could happen is your life will just become unbelievably great. Sobriety is a lot of fun. I laugh, I have a great time. I live every day like there's no tomorrow. I maximize my days. I have not had the same 2 days in sobriety since day one. If you're new in here or you're coming back, welcome back. Please remember, as what I was taught around here, is that all I have is today. If I don't drink and use between now and the time I go to sleep, I'll be sober today. If you don't drink and use between now and the time you go to sleep tonight, you'll have today. It's now time to be an equal. It's now time to start living, and it's now time to have a great life, because being sober is the fucking greatest thing in life. I thank you for my life, and God bless you very much.
What did I tell you about this guy here? I hope you didn't listen to him. Just hear him. I want to thank our speaker, Secretary.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.